Yalla, let's get this show on the road. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. You're listening to the first episode of Otherwise Occupied, a podcast where I talk to anyone and everyone living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, regardless of race, gender, and or religion. I am really excited to have as my first guest on Otherwise Occupied the amazing Palestinian chef Nof Atamna. It's actually Dr. Nof Atamna, who has a PhD in microbiology, but she's more well known in Israel for being the first Arab to win the local production of MasterChef. Nof is very vocal and proud of her Palestinian heritage and identity. That's something to take note of, I believe, in today's Israel. Anyway, we talk about Corona and her volunteer work in a test lab during the quarantine, about the racism she's dealt with throughout her life, especially in school, and a whole lot about food, specifically how she believes Palestinian cuisine is being erased by chefs in Israel and abroad, and also how her Instagram page has become a must follow during this pandemic. Honestly, I watch it all the time. It is fantastic. Just search for Nof Atamna, follow her, and you can thank me later. Or, thank Nof. That's a better idea. Anyway, here it is. I hope you have a good time. Enjoy it.
Boker tov.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great to see
How are
you.
you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
You have your cup of coffee like we agreed to. Great. We just I got to tell all the listeners that when we talked about this chat like a few days ago on the phone, you said I said come with a cup of coffee, and then you answered to me, and you said bring something to eat too, and then like I got home and I thought, was I just challenged by a master chef? So I got to show you something. I made some key lime pie. I don't know if you can see this.
Wow. Okay, I have to tell you something. If there is one thing I would like to take with me to the afterworld, it's
Yes,
lemon pie, or
lemon pie. It's the best,
anything
right?
with lemon is my favorite.
Okay, so I just got a wow from a master chef. I think I can retire. I mean, I'm fine with that. I don't have to do anything else. So, Nof, let me ask you how, these are pretty crazy times. How has life changed for you since this whole pandemic started? I mean, I'm just flabbergasted, first of all, by, reading that we almost had 4,000 new cases here in Israel. But, this has been going on for over half a year now. How has this changed everything for you?
Well, it changed everything for everybody. I guess I'm not any different. But I think that looking back at things, I think it was the best thing that happened to me, I guess.
Really?
First of all, because I finally, let's say, I was thinking all the time that life is so fragile and short and things can change all the time. But this pandemic actually made me realize this even more. I always think that, life is short, so you better do whatever you want. And this was leading me all my life, I guess. And this was the reason, actually, that I changed my career.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But like right now in the pandemic, are you saying that it made you made any changes, like decisions about how your life is going to be from now on?
I always liked volunteering. I always thought that people should do things back to the world, give back. And for me, it even was more clear that during the quarantine that I should give back somehow. I can't stay at home. I need to help. And I helped in many different ways. But I think the community feeling was even more important to me.
And you were basically, I mean, you're a scientist. You have a PhD, right, in microbiology.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably the most the person who knows most about what's going on that I've ever talked to since this thing has started. I haven't talked to anyone, with your kind of credentials. So I mean, and also correct me if I'm wrong. You've been volunteering now in a lab, a corona test lab, right? Tell me about that.
Well, as I told you, I thought that this is the time to give back even more. So I found myself not working as most people and staying at home. And I thought to myself, okay, how can I help? So there are two things that I can do. One is to teach people how to cook, and the second one is I'm a PhD in microbiology, so I can volunteer in the Corona lab. And since there were a lot of tests going on at the beginning, and they were still not equipped with enough staff to conduct all the tests, so I applied to the to the nearest hospital we have here, which is Hillel Yafe in Hadera. And I told them that I would love to help if there is any need. And of course, they were happy because the scientists there were working shifts like 18 hours, 20 hours, something crazy. And they agreed. And I found myself the next day going to the hospital. And I was so scared of the corona. And I'm going to the place where all the tubes that have corona inside, I'm going to volunteer there. But luckily, when you're a scientist and you dealt with different things that are more dangerous, you know how to work with them and you know how to protect yourself. So I volunteered there for about 1 month until my kids went back to school. So, and I had to
You've got 3 kids, right, that are back in school now, or?
Yes, I have 3 kids. I have twins, Reef and Dean. They are on 3rd grade, and my son Rocky, he's on 8th grade. So I'm a very happy mom now, finally, to have my own time in the morning so we can talk.
A little more quiet in the mornings. It's great. But okay, before we move on, I just one last question about corona. I mean, as a scientist, 4,000 cases a day in Israel, a small country of 9 million people. What has gone wrong?
Oh, nothing has gone wrong. I'll tell you, always I try to explain it this way. You own the bank 100,000 shekels, and the bank comes to you and say, okay, you can return the money all at once this month, or you can return every month just a small portion, or every 2 months even a smaller portion. So what do you choose? Eventually, we will all have to return the 100,000 shekels back to the bank. This country chose at first to return small amounts. This is why we had a quarantine and there were a lot of police officers around checking everyone with the masks. But then life is stronger because you feel that you are obligated all the time to return this money every month. And you want to make things shorter because you just want to end it up and just give the money and let's move on. So now they choose this amount of, let's say, 4,000 shekels to return every month. There is nothing correct or wrong in this. We're still studying things. So every
So
country behaves different.
it's basically trial and error. You're saying we're just kind of learning on the way as it goes.
Yeah, we know that this is the amount we have to return
Yeah.
until someday we will have a vaccination. But
Right.
um,
So
I really have no idea what is the correct
what's the
thing to
correct way
do.
to do it? Yeah, we're still figuring it out. Um,
No.
so right now you're home. You're in Baca Garbia, right? And
And I'm in Kufur Qara. I was born in
oh, you were
Bakalwa.
born in Baca. Okay, and that's where you grew up. Baca is like about, I guess, halfway between Haifa and Tel Aviv. What did your parents do or do?
My mom, she's retired now, but
Mm,
she was a school principal and she was a Hebrew language teacher.
wow.
Yeah. And my father, he was a doctor. He was a respiratory system
Mm.
doctor.
So that's how kind of maybe did that kind of push you a little into the science field?
Well, Arabic families are not different from Jewish families, to tell you the truth. When you finish high school, there is this the talk that you have with your parents, and they actually let you choose between becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer,
Lawyer.
but not a chef. I don't think this was something that they said, "Oh, this could be nice."
They didn't see that coming.
So they let you somehow choose what you want to do. Um,
You
uh,
went to high school in Hadera, right? In a Jewish
yeah,
school.
in a
Why did you go
Jewish.
to high school in Hadera? Was there because there wasn't anything in Baca, or
No, there were a lot of high schools in Baca, but the difference back in the 90s, now you can count and see how old I am.
shh, I'm not telling
Uh, so the high schools in Baca back then were not as good as Jewish high
you.
schools around. There was still a very big gap, a very big difference, and I was, to tell you the truth, a little bit bored, and I felt not very much challenged in my high school, and I really wanted to fulfill whatever I have.
Mm,
And there were a few options. One was going to high school in Haifa. It was an Arabic high school, and one is to choose a very near school, but it's a Jewish school in Hadera. And I chose to go there, first of all, because my father, he also studied there.
mm.
And he really liked this high school. And I went there and I saw the students, and I thought that this could be nice. It's not very far. It's a very, very good high school. And I
How was
decided
it? I mean,
to.
were you one of the only Arab kids there, or was there a lot of?
Well, when I started, I was the only one, but then 2 years later, you could see that some are coming from
Mm.
Baca and doing the same. Um,
How was that for you? I mean, was there? I mean, was there racism? Was there how was it being the only one of the only Arab kids in a school like that?
well, I'm not complaining very much about life. I'm a very optimist person, but I can tell you something that period of time was the hardest, I guess, in all my life.
Wow. Why is
The
that?
thing is that I believe always that any problem has a solution. There is one problem that you can't change your origin, and when people are racist, um, you can't solve that. You can't. It's very hard to solve that. I can't change who I am, what I am, and where I come from. And if they hate me because, I don't know, I have black hair, I'm short, so I can't change that. It's their
Mm,
problem, not mine. So it was very, very hard. At the beginning, I remember that I thought to myself, okay, I came back home and I thought, I'm not I'm not doing this anymore. It's very hard. I don't have any friends.
mm.
And I remember talking to my father and telling him that that's it. This was my last day in this high school. I'm going back to Baka al-Gharbiyya, and I'm going to study there, and I'll be one of many, and that's it. And he was a very, very wise man. He told me, well, I will support you in anything that you want to do, but remember that if you go back, then you're hiding just like an ostrich from racism. But then you will face racism one day or another. So now you will go back to Baka al-Gharbiyya and continue high school, but then what? You will go to university and face it? Or you don't want to go to university? Fine. So what do you want to do? You want to go to work somewhere? You want to go to like government offices? You will face it. You will face it. You can't close the door and be at home and think that that's it. It's gonna go away. So I decided that I'm gonna face it, and it's better that to face it at a young age and learn how to live with it than postponing things and hiding from things. So it's there. You can't hide. So it was very hard experience, but at the end, I understood. It's amazing. I was just a kid. I understood that to get to their hearts is to show them that you know their culture even better than they do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how did
So
that come about? Like, you mean you wanted to show them that you know more about I don't know,
about
Israeli or
them,
Hebrew history, Jewish history? Really?
yeah. Look at my grades, like in Tanakh,
In the Bible?
Bible. I got the highest score in high school.
So the highest
Why?
score in the Bible
Yeah.
went to an Arab from Baka al-Gharbiyya. That's crazy.
I was I got the highest grades all the time, like in things like Toshba. I don't know how you translate
Yeah,
Toshba
that's like a version of learning the Bible by
by
heart.
heart.
Yeah, something like that. It's like a different part of the
So,
Bible.
and then I remember doing back then in the 90s, everyone had this like magazines that everyone was reading, like
Right.
Rosh Hashanah, Ma'ariv Lanoar, all these like
I
teenagers
subscribe.
magazines. Yeah. So I got these magazines all the time, and I was reading, and I wanted to know who's the singer and what makes them laugh, like what kind of jokes, what is the Israeli Jewish humor. And I learned everything. I even tried to um, make my accent in Hebrew sound even better than everyone.
Wow.
So yeah, I was working on my pay and I was working on my resh.
Uh-huh.
And some may think that it was like hiding who I am.
Mm.
Um, but for me, it was not like maybe it was hiding who I am, but if that was the only way to get them to talk to me and to have a chat with me without interrupting, at the first sentence, like, where are you from? You're an Arab. Okay, bye.
Right.
So it came from there, but then, things began to change dramatically. So by the end of the second year, I was one of the more, I was not popular still. I did not have the correct genes, but I was somehow feeling much better in high school. And that's it. And I finished high school in Hadera and then went to Tel Aviv University.
Did your degree in
Uh,
biology, right? That's where you started biology.
yeah. So when I was telling my parents that I want to become a chef, and they said, get a real job and then we'll talk.
Oh, so
And
back then you already had that pull towards
yeah,
towards towards food. Oh, you mean like did you already feel it in high school?
I felt it all the time since I was very, very young, like 4 or 5, because I was a lot with as I told you, my mom, she was a Hebrew teacher, school principal, so she was very, very busy. And I grew up with my both grandmothers, and both of them were grandmothers, like grandmothers used to be.
Typical, yeah.
So, so they were, the only thing that concerned them every morning is to, organize the house, clean everything,
Mm.
and to cook. So they cooked for this son whatever he likes, and that son the thing that he likes. And I was there. I was always there with them, watching them cooking, watching how much attention and love and care they put into food, and how much food has the strength of bringing all my uncles at every day to get their dinner or to get their lunch from these grandmothers.
Nof, was it only watching, or did it eventually also come to this part where they say, you do this now and you do that?
Well, I was very, very young, so they gave me some things to do, but they were not like complicated things. So the
Mhm.
maximum would be like peel the potato or
You got to
peel
start
the
somewhere.
yeah. So I started from very low, but then when years passed, I started doing cooking myself at home
Mm.
whenever my mom was working and I was at home, and I had the kitchen to me.
Mm.
So I used to do a lot of experiments and clean up everything and throw the trash before she comes back home, so that she does not see whatever mess I made. But it was very, very interesting to me.
Mm.
It was very, I had so much curiosity about food and where it comes from and what different kinds of food there is out there that are not cooked by my grandmothers. So we had a lot of cooking books. My mom, because she was a Hebrew teacher, she had so many books, and some of them were cooking books. So this introduced me to so many other cuisines out there.
Right.
And even when I finished high school, and I just thought that this is what I want to do. It's very interesting. But as I
The
told
parents,
you,
the parents kind of won that battle, at least the first time they won that battle.
they really wanted me to get a real job, as they said. But the thing is that now I understand how important it was for me to do this. So I would not even change anything on my path
Ah.
towards food. So I would go the same way again,
And you did an
because
amazing route. Okay, go ahead, because yeah.
because going to the academy and staying in the academy for so many years in the university and studying biology, it doesn't matter what you study, but the thing is that you in university they teach you how to think. They teach you how to look at things. They teach you how to analyze things.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you study biology or, I don't know, Chinese culture, or they teach you how to think. And this was the best thing that happened to me, because I started looking at food differently. I started
Mm.
looking at food. It's not only recipes and it's not only emotions. It's a lot of history. It's a lot of there are so many layers to food. You can see how wars changed food. You can see how occupation changed food. How you see so many things. Like even when you look at women and women rights, how they changed food. So it had so many layers to it, and this was fascinating to me. And it changed so many things in me when I
Mm.
look at recipes. So now when I do a recipe, it's very important to me to read its origins, where it comes from, why it evolved this way, why it survived. So, and it did not get extinct like many other dishes that were, popular at certain years and then they got extinct. So And I'm really happy I did it this way because it made me a better chef, I guess.
I was wondering because part of your route in academia was also in the States, right? In Ohio.
Yeah, 1 year.
I mean, 1 year in Ohio was. By the way, was that? Were you in the States ever before that, or was that your first?
No, it was my first time in the States.
I'm wondering, like,
And
culinary wise, how was that a shocker for you? I mean, American food for a year.
it was a shocker. I'm sorry. I'm saying the truth. I'm not.
Don't apologize.
Well, in Ohio, maybe if I was studying in New York, then things would be different. But I was studying in Ohio, and
Were you in Cleveland or Cincinnati?
sorry,
What
Columbus,
city?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. So I was studying there, and there were not much of like culinary experiences there. But, and this is the good thing of being a scientist, is that you get to work in a lab with so many people coming from so many places. So I had a Korean postdoc, I had a postdoc from Sri Lanka, I had a postdoc from China. So all these people were bringing their lunch boxes at noon, and I used to peek inside their lunch boxes and asking them, like, what is this? Can I taste it? Can you teach me? So I did my master's in the States, but I also did a lot of culinary self education. And it was very, very interesting.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, you went down the route of being a biologist for a few years, and suddenly, in your, correct me if I'm wrong, and was it your late 20s or mid 30s, you decide to make this change and try out for the most popular reality cooking show in Israel, one of the most popular in the world, MasterChef. Why'd you do it?
Well, I was 33. So I remember I was doing my postdoc in the Technion. And I remember we were working in a very, very important paper. And my professor the next day comes to the lab, and the first thing he asks me is, what do you have in your lunchbox today? And I looked at him and I thought, well, this is a weird thing to ask your postdoc because, we're working on a paper. Maybe you should ask me how were the results yesterday. And he looks at me and he laughs and he said, you're a brilliant scientist, but you're just a great cook. So, and you're wasting your life. And I thought, this is a weird thing to say to,
Wow.
yeah, to me, that I'm wasting my life. I'm not, playing around.
Yeah, you're doing science. I mean,
Yeah. So he said, you should totally do something about it. And sometimes people say things that they just pass you. And sometimes people say things that linger in you for a very long time. And you start thinking that maybe there is something that in what he said. And a few days later, I was at home cooking, and my husband was watching MasterChef. And he's like, oh, well, no, look at what she did. You can do totally better. And I looked at him and I said, you're saying this because I'm your wife and it's too cold for you to sleep outside today? and and he said, well, no, you're good in this. You should think about it. So this added up to what my professor said. And then I remember following 1 or 2 weeks, talking to my mom. And my mom, she's a school principal. She studied Hebrew language. But every time that I was sitting with her talking about life and career, she always said, if there is something, she's retired. But she said, oh, I should have sometime in my 20s, 30s, gone and changed career and became a lawyer because this is what I love. And she missed it. She missed it because she was doing. She loves Hebrew language. She loves being a school principal, but then her heart always thought that I could have also done that. And I did not want to be retired and sitting on my sofa talking to my children or grandchildren, telling them, well, yes, I am a very famous professor in biology, but my heart was always somewhere else. And I get one chance to be here in this world. So maybe it's time for a change. And I thought the classic change, like telling everyone that I'm leaving science and going to culinary school, studying for 1 or 2 years, and then starting from very low, like I used to peel potatoes for my grandmothers, was not something that anyone will support me in doing. So I thought the best thing is to use these platforms that they're out there, like MasterChef. And maybe if I go in the show and I win the show, then I will have some kind of how you say it, like a better starting point.
A better starting point.
Yeah,
To jump. Yeah,
yeah.
you can get farther. Well, how was it for you? I mean, I remember, especially those early seasons of MasterChef, which I really, really liked. But I remember watching you, and you were just, I mean, you were such a natural on TV. It looked like I felt you were. You look a little shocked at that, but you didn't feel
Yeah.
natural. I mean, how was it for you? You didn't feel. What was it difficult?
Well, I was a very shy person back then. I did not like cameras. Some people love cameras. They see cameras and they're like, I'm here, I'm here. I did not like cameras at all. I was very shy. Even when we got married, the people get like photographs with their,
Families and
the family, the thing. I was like, okay, let's get it done. Let's do this fast. I don't like it. And then maybe it looked from the outside that it was natural, but it was very, very hard for me doing that. But it was the best time of my life
wow.
because not so many people get this chance of being reborn without
Mm.
dying in the middle. so so you get like, I entered as this PhD scientist from the Technion, and then I'm finishing with a title of a chef, with a title that enables me to change careers,
And
and this is what I did.
that's what you did. Yeah. What changed after that?
Well, I notified the
The Technion.
academy that it was a very, very nice time, but I'm taking a year off. And I'll tell you the truth. At first, I thought it's going to be a year off. I thought it's not going to last, like all reality shows. You're a star for a few months and that's
Mm.
it. And things,
Yeah.
like then becomes a new star. And then, so I took a year off, and I was like a kid in Disney World
Mm.
because I got to do so many things that I really wanted to do, like writing recipes, teaching people how to cook Arabic cuisine, which we will talk about later because it's very important to me, and um, cooking for people, catering,
Mm.
commercials, whatever. I was really, really, really happy. And by the end of the year, I thought, okay, they still like me, so I will tell the Technion that I want one more year off. And it was like that since then. So now I know that that's it. I'm not going
You're not
back.
going back.
I'm here for
You're
good, and I'm here to stay. And I'm really enjoying work. And this is something I think that is most important, is that when I wake up, it doesn't matter what time I went to sleep, doesn't matter how tired I am. I'm like, okay, what I'm doing today. You're so excited. You have
amazing.
this look. I'm talking to you, and I'm happy. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about this from my heart. So it's, you really can enjoy your job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I didn't enjoy science. I was really good in that, but I was not. You can even be happier. You can even enjoy more than you enjoy whatever you're doing now when you do the things that your heart's like.
You're so lucky. I mean, you're not lucky. You made the decision. It's not about luck. You made the decision to do something that
I'm
makes you
still
happy.
lucky. I'm still lucky
Mm.
because I could have gone to MasterChef and, maybe got eliminated at,
No, what are you talking about, Nof? You're the
early
best. Come
stages.
on, you're the best.
I was lucky that, there's luck is like 20%, 80% is whatever you do with the luck you get.
So you said, let's talk about what's important to you. You said it was important to you to talk about Arabic food and Palestinian food, especially lately. You've been pretty vocal about it, about how in one of the interviews you gave that you said that Palestinian food is being appropriated in a way by
Mm.
Israeli Jewish chefs, and then you got a lot of backlash for that. I mean, can you tell me a little about that, and also about what you learned from all the reactions to when a Palestinian Muslim woman raises her voice and says what she feels and what she thinks.
Wow.
I started with a bomb. That was a bomb question, right? Or
Um, it's a very, very complicated question, even more than the coronavirus.
mm,
So,
yeah, I'll let you take a drink of your coffee and
yeah, I need that now. Um, I'll tell you something. My, as I told you, I grew up on with my grandmothers at first, watching them cooking, and they cooked very traditional food that was they learned from their grandmothers, from their mothers, and it was passed on for many, many generations. And these women, they were like preserving my identity, my heritage. And this heritage, when you say culture, you say identity. One of the things that are there when you say culture is food. So if I go to your house and I eat chraime and I eat fricassee or I eat maklube, I know where you're from.
mm,
I know what is your origins. I know where your parents came to Israel. Um, so I don't have, and I teach cooking. I teach cooking, and my students are mostly Israeli Jewish. So I don't have a problem with people cooking my food. In contrary, I think that if they cook my food, they they like it. They like my culture. They like where I come from. And when I started seeing chefs taking this food from my culture and giving it a different title, giving it the title of Israeli food when it's not Israeli food, um, it 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 hurted me so much. It did not hurt me as Nof. It hurt. It hurts my grandmothers. It that passed this knowledge. It hurts my great grandmothers, and it erases me. It erases me from being the owner. Not me, of course. I'm not talking about Nof. I don't own anything, but it erases my identity from this food. And it's not a secret that being an Arab Muslim woman inside Israel, you're not considered, and you will never be considered to be Israeli because you're simply not equal.
Can I ask you? I mean, you just at the beginning of this question, you said it's about culture and about identity, and you're kind of touching on that now. I'm wondering, there are a lot of Arabs, in Israel inside the Green Line that identify themselves differently. Some call themselves Arab Israelis. Some say they're Palestinians. Can I ask you how do you present yourself?
I don't present myself. I'm telling you what I am. What are my origins? So, I'm Palestinian. I don't know how. I live in Israel, yes, and I'm Israeli citizen, yes. But my origins, my roots are Palestinian. I can't change that. And somehow in Israel, it became very illegal to say the word Palestine or Palestinian. It's like if you say the word, then you're admitting that there is people that are called Palestinians. Well, yes, there are, look at Gaza Strip, who's there? It's not Swedish people. So no, it's very simple. I don't know why things it's just plain facts. The people that are living in Gaza, the people that are living in the West Bank are my people.
Mm. So what you say, I mean, let's go back to the chefs a second. And when these chefs, by the way, I think it's not only happening here in Israel. It's chefs that are abroad, in London, New York, and Los Angeles. This is happening all over the world now. Is Israeli, what they call Israeli food, but they say, we build up on it. We added something. We made it a little different. We made a little tweak. What's your
Yeah,
answer
well,
to that?
I'll tell you something. Like if you go to Chinatown and you eat the Chinese food that is still called Chinese, there you will see that it's completely different than the food in China itself. Okay, it's completely different, and it was adjusted and adapted to be more palatable to Americans. Okay, but still, it's not called American food. It's still called Chinese food.
Mm.
But somehow, when it's connected to Arabic culture, it's not even Arabic culture. It's Mizrahi culture. It's like it doesn't matter if you're a Jewish Moroccan or Palestinian Muslim, or if you're like from the Mizrahi section, it's legal to erase your origins, identity, and packaging it into a new thing that is called Israeli. I don't have a problem. I have a problem with, when you read so much about cuisines all over the world, and you understand how many years, when you say cuisine, it's something that is passed from generation to generation. How many years it got these cuisines to evolve and to
Right.
become a cuisine?
Right.
It's not something that happens in 50 or 60 or 70 years. It's thousands of years. But somehow in you want to build identity, you want to build culture. So you want to build it because it's sexy around the world, because it's selling around the world. I don't know why. So it's okay to erase these people and packaging it into Israeli food, like whatever happened with the hummus, whatever happened with the falafel, whatever happened. It's not. Well, how can I explain? So,
I mean, I guess what you're saying, it takes time, but I'm wondering about, if I ask you about time, I mean, is there an Israeli cuisine? Is there an Israeli kitchen, or can you say that there is an Israeli maybe, I don't know, I didn't even know if you or I can point to one Israeli dish that evolved in Israel that was, after 1948, that is independent of any influence from Palestinian food or independent from European influences. Is there such a dish? Is there such a cuisine right now?
Well, it's very hard, and if there is one or two examples, it's not enough
Right.
to say there is a cuisine. A cuisine is much more than that. But I think that what I'm saying is please change your perspectives on things and how you do things, because Israel has, frankly, I think it's most beautiful mosaic of people that are living in them inside this country. There is Palestinians, Arabs like me, and there is like Jewish people coming from Morocco and from Tunisia, and I don't know, from all over the world. And instead of praising this mosaic of saying we're beautiful because we're so many cultures, and there is the Ethiopian people that came from Ethiopia and the Jewish people that came from Russia, and instead of praising that, saying we're just a beautiful mosaic and we love all colors in this movie.
So right here, Nof and I had a few technical issues, and I had to stop the recording and start again a few minutes later. So that's why there's this little cut here. Let's go back to the conversation. I hope it kind of works out and everything is still understood. Here you go. So, okay, we're back, and you were telling me about how diverse Israel was community-wise: Moroccan, Yemeni, Ashkenazi, Russian, and how that affects the food scene.
Yes. What I was saying is that we're beautiful because we're diverse. We're, even if you look at it in a perspective of a biologist, the key to survival of humanity was diversion. That we're not very similar in our genes. This is why we survived every problem. So there is a very beautiful thing of accepting people because they're just different. And I think if Israel chooses to praise the gift it has of being a place for so many people, then things would be better. Then there will not be a very urgent need of saying this is Israeli cuisine. No, our cuisine, the cuisine in Israel is composed of Palestinian food, it's composed of Moroccan food, saying this actually will bring a lot of change in people inside Israel, to think that it's okay to be Ashkenazi, it's okay to be Mizrahi, it's okay to be Russian, it's okay, and I think if there will be a choice like this, then it will bring a lot of change inside people of accepting each other, and accepting the differences and not being racist to each other.
Do you think that, I'm trying to wonder, is food just a touchy issue everywhere around the world, or is it specifically, this conflict that has this crazy ability to make anything toxic?
Well, it's a touchy issue, I think, everywhere, but here it's even more touchy. Let's say it's like this, because it's not simply when there is, like, all the time this talk about there are no Palestinian people, no. So when you say there is no Palestinian food, but you take the food and you make it Israeli, then You're like all the time trying to admit that there is no such people here. You're trying all the time to cover up the fact that we're here,
Right.
So it's very
The
happy here, yeah.
the correct me if I'm wrong, but the Palestinian kitchen is part of like a larger cuisine called the Shami.
Yeah. So this area, and again, we're talking about the same thing. This area was an area that had no borders between Lebanon and Syria. There were no borders between Israel,
Right.
Palestine, and Syria. And even south parts of Turkey were considered parts of big Syria, which is called the Levant. So this whole area was very shared a lot of dishes together. They're cooking basically the same flavors, the same philosophy of food. Still, there are some dishes that are typical, and you can find them only in Palestine. There are some dishes that you can find only in Syria, only in Lebanon, but there are not clear borders. I'm saying this because if you look up north, in Israel, a lot of people, you see how food is like, it's not something that you draw now a border between Israel and Lebanon or between Lebanon and Syria, and they will stop cooking each other's food. It will take time. It will take time because, as I said, kitchens need time to evolve. So still there are a lot of shared dishes, but there are also endemic dishes that are typical to certain areas. Okay.
And what's unique about Palestinian food compared to those ones that are close around it in the Levant?
There are a few dishes that were actually invented or made here more than in other countries. So let's say maybe the celebrity, which is knafe, which is the beautiful noodles with the cheese, and it's a very popular dessert even in Syria, in Lebanon. It was invented, and the first attempts of making knafe were in Nablus, were Palestinians. Okay, from there it was because there were no borders, because it was a whole area. The people started making this even in Lebanon, in Syria, and calling it knafe Nabelsi, which means knafe from Nablus.
Right.
There are so many dishes like maklube, which is like a layered dish that is made from rice and vegetables and meat. And it's called maklube because you have the pot and then you flip it upside down
I love it. I love it.
and reveal this beautiful rice cake.
By the way, I always wondered about maklube and we talk about a regional and local stuff. When did rice become, enter, because it doesn't grow. We don't grow it.
Yeah, this is the whole thing. Maklube was made for thousands of years, but maklube was made based on burgul, which is wheat, cracked wheat, and it was made with frike, which is green wheat that is smoked. And both of them were, let's say, the rice in this region.
Right.
Let's say rice was grown here and came here even in the 13th century. There was rice, but the people who were able to eat rice are the rich people. And common people like me and you, I hope you're a common people.
I am. Can't you see?
We're eating burgul and friki. And they were looking at these rich people that are able to buy rice and cook rice, and thinking that one day maybe we can eat this, we can afford to eat this. And let's say about 100 years ago, when rice was something that is that maybe you can buy, okay, you can afford, people were running to rice like crazy because it was like something that only the rich and famous could.
Right. So basically, you're saying like when I make my makluba, I should pretty much feel like I'm high society.
Yeah. Exactly. So the thing is that whenever you have something that you can reach and finally it's available, so you tend to just throw whatever you had and embrace this new thing that you can
Mm-hmm.
finally afford. And this made a lot of dishes that used to be made by using burgul or rice or friki. Everything changed, and now it's based on rice. But I can tell you now that because friki and burgul, they cost like 4 times the price of rice today, look
Rice.
how things change, people started admitting, maybe it's healthier, maybe it's better to go back to whatever our grandmothers were cooking. Same with white sugar, by the way. White sugar was something that was extracted maybe in the 10th century. They started extracting sugar from sugarcane in the region of Syria, and it was very, very expensive thing. And you can see, like in this high society cooking books, that they talk about white rice when ordinary people like me and you used to use natural sugars, which is honey,
Yeah.
which
Mm.
is all these molasses that come from fruit, and they were looking at sugar like something that one day when sugar will be available, we will use it definitely.
So
And
that's why we eat so much of the pomegranate molasses and the date, like the silan, were those things that were used in Palestinian cuisine instead of sugar?
pomegranate molasses was not used for sweetness; it was used for sourness.
For sourness, right? Right.
But date molasses was used a lot
Mm.
in sweetness. Carob molasses,
Mm.
um, um, grape molasses, which is called dibis.
Great.
Grape molasses. Hebron is the most famous city in making the best grape molasses.
Great molasses.
So delicious. I can tell you, it's amazing. But then when sugar was available and people were able to buy it and it was manufactured, you know, by many companies and came here and it was very cheap, people started neglecting everything and going towards the white sugar. But now people, when honey and grape molasses and carob molasses costs now 10 times white sugar, people started thinking, oh, maybe it's amazing how things change and
Yeah.
how sometimes even the price of things changes your diet and changes things back and
What
forth.
what are your like favorite cuisines and dishes besides the Palestinian cuisine? Like I'm wondering, does Nof Atamna ever, take some time and make a nice lasagna at home?
Well, I have I make a lot of dishes, to tell you the truth. My favorite, I guess, my last supper would be Thai food.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
I love Thai cuisine. I think it's so delicious. So, but I make everything from all around the world. Like my kids are very, thank God, they are willing to try things. So,
Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky.
uh,
Mine are a little at that stage where they're basically it's a one word no. It's like no, no, we're not going to try this.
no, but beg. This is what I do. I beg a lot.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
for
Are
me,
there?
it was very important. I cook everything, but I really wanted to take my cuisine, the one that I grew up on, the one that was passed by so many women in so many generations of my family and different families here, and package it in a new way and giving it its identity and um, given it the beautiful packaging it deserves, because this cuisine is one of the most delicious cuisines there are out there. It's very healthy. It's
Hmm.
very, people know so little about this cuisine. They maybe know the famous dishes, but there are so many other dishes. And it's a very, very smart cuisine because it's based on a trial and error of so many generations.
Hmm.
So, for instance, all the foraging part of this cuisine, which is very, very important, is something that was even in these years, getting extinct because not so many people are foraging anymore. For me, it was very important to preserve it, to take the children and show them what I learned from my grandmother. It's a very smart cuisine because uh, if you're in a quarantine and you can't go to supermarkets because you're very scared, you can just go outside and walk a few meters and find things that you want to eat,
And
that
make
you
a
can
meal.
eat. Yeah, like in
Amazing.
the everywhere. So it has this survival thing that I really like, and it has a lot of like Arabic medicine in it. So a lot of dishes are connected to your health situation. So if you're a pregnant woman, then there are a few dishes that are made for you.
Oh,
If you are breastfeeding, then you get this dishes that are made for you, and they're all many years after, of course, were found to be, correct or have a logic in them. So using different spices as antibiotics or as ingredients that help you after delivery to get, have more milk, or so many
yeah.
things, and it's so smart, so beautiful, and so deep, and it touches so many things in of your everyday life, that I think it deserves so much to be known by people. And
I think though, would you agree that Palestinian cuisine is becoming, at least maybe worldwide, a little more well known? Thanks, for example, to you and what you do also on social media, especially here in Israel. But I'm looking at very great cookbook that just came out from Sami Tamimi, who used to work with, who still works, I think, with Ottolenghi. His book called Palestine, which is fabulous. Uh, and by the way, it seems like it's not only it's a very political book. It talks about the occupation, but it talks about the history of the food. Would you agree that the Palestinian cuisine is somewhat getting a bit more uh, of a stage?
yeah, I'm very happy about this. It's something that started like 5 years ago, maybe.
Mm, mm.
It's not. It's very, very recent, and it's still in its first stages. Um, I think it's not. For me, it's not. Maybe it's political, but it's not. It did not come from there. Maybe I faced that it's political. It came from the fact that I wanted my culture, my grandmothers, to not be erased, I guess, to get whatever the rights they have on this cuisine. And they have, and I'm talking about women, because the women are the people, not the chefs. The women, they were the ones that saved, preserved this culture and passed it on generation after the generation. And they deserve to be documented. They deserve to be given the rights for all the food that we're cooking here.
Mm. I'm wondering, because you're during Corona, especially, you're so active, especially on Instagram, and I've been following you, and you are completely amazing. It's like just I could just I rewind, I watch them over and over again. Your videos
Mhm.
of you making these gorgeous, gorgeous dishes, and what's great about it is that you see the reactions. I mean, these people are like sometimes an hour or less after you post this thing that you made, people are posting the recipe that you just made, and you're reacting to them, and there's just like this beautiful community growing there. I mean, tell me about that. I mean, and do you feel that, this is a way, this is how to show Israelis about the Palestinian kitchen and through Instagram?
Yeah, well, it started from as I told you, from the quarantine. I was at home and I thought, how can I help? So one of the things that is volunteering at the Corona Lab. The other thing was to help people, because I teach cooking. This is what I do for a living. So I thought, okay, now I'm in quarantine. I'm gonna lose my mind because every day looks the same. And I have nothing to do. And if there is a very dangerous place a person can be in, is that all his days are the same. It's a very dangerous situation. And I thought, okay, so, and there is no like hope or like anything like, So I thought, okay, I'm gonna teach them how to cook. It came from from the heart, from from the thing that I felt that this is my community. It doesn't matter, if it's Israeli and Palestinians. This is why I'm posting in Arabic and in Hebrew, because simply I don't have any problem of belonging to both. And I'm gonna post these recipes, and I'm gonna teach them how to cook and make their quarantine days a little bit better. So I started cooking and doing all these videos and posting them on Instagram from my heart. And I did not realize that a few months later, it's going to be like the best show in Instagram, I guess.
It is completely.
And people started.
And you put this amazing music on it each time. I mean, this beautiful. How do you choose the music that you're gonna post?
So, as I said, food is culture and belongs to culture. It belongs to identity. One of the things that are also included in identity is language, is music. And if you like my recipes, then you should also see whatever layers I have more in my identity, which is my music, which is my Arabic language that you see every day in my videos, and you're not scared of it because many people see Arabic language and it comes in their brains. When do you see Arabic? When do you see Arabic? Like where? In maybe Hamas, things that are showed in TV, and it's always negative. It's always presented to you as a negative language. And now you see it with this beautiful music, with this beautiful food, with this beautiful font, and
these beautiful hands and the beautiful bracelets. I mean, everything's just beautiful about. Yeah, we can even hear them a little bit, and you sometimes hear them on the videos.
Yeah, these bracelets are part of my identity. I'm not like they're not coming from the fact that I love gold, or I'm a woman that likes jewelry very much. These are my identity. These were worn by so many women, so many generations back. They were part of my culture. And at a certain point, these bracelets were, how do you say, mocked to?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. They were laughed at. They were, yeah.
Laughed at, yes, because maybe pearls are better. Maybe this is like ethnic. This is very old, very not updated.
Right.
And I chose to wear them because I like my culture. I love my culture. I love my identity. I love my grandmothers who used to wear these. And I'm embracing who I am. I don't need to erase or delete anything to be liked by people. If I like me, then people will like me eventually. And I think this was very much proved in Instagram. I like my culture. I like my music. I like my bracelets. And so many people, after seeing that, took out their bracelets. I got so many messages from people, especially, Moroccans, Mizrahi Jewish. They're saying, oh, we got mocked so much, like laughed at because of these bracelets. Like they're so not updated. They're so, and now we're taking them out. We're gonna wear them. This is part of our culture. This is part of our origins, our grandmothers, and this made me feel so good, so good. It's not only the recipe and people cooking. It's many changes that are happening in a
It's a
beautiful
small
way.
change that has a lot of meaning. I mean, so much meaning for that person.
Yeah, so much. And when you change the people perspective about their origins, their history, and they finally they hear the music and they say, oh, I'm Jewish and I came from Egypt, and this song was played every Friday when my mom was cooking in the kitchen, the Shabbat dinner. And I tell her, yes, this same song my father used to play when we were kids. It was his favorite. So now she knows that
There's
there's
a
so
connection.
there is a connection. And there is a connection in flavors, in music, in so many things. And this connection is always erased. And no,
It's
I'm trying to show that there is connection because I
there's a
believe
connection.
this is the only way. This is the only way to show people how similar and how close we can be.
I mean, it's such a perfect segue to how I want to wrap up this conversation, because I'm going to try to, in this podcast, I'm going to try to ask every guest that I have, kind of end it with the same question, or actually, it's two questions, but they're very, very similar, but the answers could be very different. And what you just talked about, I think, is a really good connection to that. And I want to ask you, I focus on that between the river and the sea, there are about 12 13 million people, half of them Jews, half of them non-Jews. And I want to ask you, what kind of region do you want to see? And if you could, like, for example, if you could just snap your fingers and have your fantasy of what how this place would be divided up, not divided up, one entity, two entities, and in the same breath, what do you think will happen? I mean, what's your more, like, if you use your analytical mind, of what do you actually think is going to be? There are two different things: what you want, but what you actually think is going to be here.
I want to tell you that Muslims and Jewish people were living for so many years happily together in so many countries, in so many Arabic countries. They were equal, they were respected, and everything was fine. I don't think that there is a problem between Islam and Judaism. In contrary, I think they both respect each other very much. See all the connections there are between, like, all these, even in the Knesset, like the parties that are Haredim, and how they're how they're very, very much connected to Muslims. And they come, like all the rabbis, they come to the mosques here, and everything is fine. There's no problem. I think the problem is between, like, the Zionist view of things. This view is not equal. Judaism is equal, but this view comes and says, "This is our right. This is for us. This is." And I think if I was one day, maybe they will let me do whatever I want. I will probably erase both, Israel and Palestine. Yeah. And I tell them, okay, now we're a new country. We're a new country. We're all equal. We have all the same starting point. We're going to call it, I don't know what. We will find a new name. And now we will start all over again. You're all equal. Everything is fine. No, everyone gets to keep his religion, his culture. You're also beautiful because you're different, and that's it.
I
And of
guess it
course,
sounds like a tabula rasa, just
it
like
sounds like
everything.
being God. It's like um, respect and equality is the key for
Mm.
everything. And this is why when I do my recipes, when I do everything, when I write about things, I always respect the people in front of me. I always try to understand them. I always try to feel whatever they feel. And I think this is the key thing to understand what is going on Israeli people and on Palestinian people. They just simply don't get each other's fears, each other's pain. It's like sometimes it's not legitimate that you have pain when I'm happy.
Mm.
So just equality and looking one to the other in the eyes, not patronizing.
I could not agree anymore. No, I mean, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm just so happy that you got to be my first guest for this podcast. Because like when I look at you, I think this is what I want this. This is what I want this to be. You know, this is it. This is the real thing. Thank
You
you so
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 much.
much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Ami. Bye.
That's it. The first episode is over. If you liked it, please share it with your family and friends or on social media. And since this is new for me, I'm very welcome to comments and suggestions. Lastly, do subscribe to Otherwise Occupied on amikaufman.substack.com and on your favorite podcast directory. Bye-bye.